Guys and girls, this is Kathleen Bradley, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson welcoming you back to TV Confidential, radio talk show about television. Chuck Harter is with us as we welcome back legendary music manager Harvey Lisberg. You recall we had Harvey on back in 2024, chatted about his new book, I'm Into Something Good, and we touched on pretty much every aspect of your music career except Herman's Hermits. And
probably the most important.
Which is why I'm here today.
We had such a good reaction on our Facebook following in particular. We had to bring Harvey back and to talk about Herman's Hermits and Peter Noon and the many things that launched his long, successful career in music. Harvey's memoir, I'm Into Something Good, My Life Managing 10cc, Herman's Hermits, and many more, is available wherever books are sold through Omnibus Press. Harvey, welcome back to our program.
Nice to be back.
We were just chatting before we formally started recording. You mentioned your writing partner, Charlie Silverman. If I remember correctly, you discovered Peter and the band then known as Herman and the Hermits around the time you and Charlie started writing songs.
No, I think we were writing songs before then. Charlie was a lifelong friend. We used to play football on the same team, and also he had a very big house. His parents were quite wealthy, and we used to go and I used to play there. We wrote several songs. I mean, the whole idea of getting the band in the first place was because we wanted to get our songs to another band, to a band to perform them. We weren't performers as such at the time. Mm-hmm. So we wrote probably for a year together, probably, just as a hobby, because I played the guitar, he played the guitar, and we just messed around, skiffle, Everly Brothers stuff, just for fun. But when with the Beatles and everybody started writing songs, like, well, we could do that, and we did that. So that was probably 62, 63. But I didn't start with Hermits till about November 63, or maybe even later.
Well, I know from your book, Harvey, which I enjoyed greatly too and had a lot of fun with, there were a few member changes, and then it solidified to the band, which was Barry Whitman on drums, Carl Green on bass, Keith Hopwood on rhythm guitar, and Derek Leckenby on lead guitar. In those early days, what was your opinion of them as a band? Yes, Peter was a star and had charisma, but what was the band? How was the band?
Well, they were excellent musically. There weren't any problems with the band. The band were just held back by Mickey Most.
Well, I want to get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Well, first of all, let's go before that, because Herman and the Hermits so there was Stephen Titterington was the drummer, Alan Wrigley was the bass player, and then there was Keith and Peter and Carl. So that was the band. That was Herman and the Hermits. And they did all the initial work. So when I was with Charlie and when we were messing around getting lots of bookings, so it was that band, Herman and the Hermits. It was only when Mickey Most came to see them, which is a long story, and then we got Seen at 6:30, which is the TV part. All this, there's a lot in the book that didn't include this Herman and the Hermits part, and I want to include that in the reprint or a new book, whatever. I'm definitely going to go into that in detail because it's really very interesting. It's quite funny with the Scene at 6:30, how we got it. Those were my days when I was an accountant, writing music and messing around in this time period you're talking about. But it wasn't Herman's Hermits. Herman's Hermits were the two so they substituted two players. The drummer had to go and Alan Wrigley had to go, who was really a very important part of the band, although he didn't play very well. But he was very, very, very important and very, very it was very difficult for Mickey Most came up. We heard the tracks, and I don't know how much of this we related on the last program, Ed. I don't really know. Did we discuss anything to do with Mickey Most sound in the band and everything, or do you want me to go through it again? I don't know.
Well, I can tell you we've picked up several stations since your last visit on our program, so a good portion of our audience may not have heard the first interview. So if we go back and forth, that's fine.
I'll go from wherever you want me to go. So if I go from Herman and the Hermits...
Yes, this is the Harvey show.
They actually did a lot of work. We got a full date sheet on them. Nobody... All my friends used to mock me, say they're a load of rubbish. Everybody. Stick to your job. Become an accountant. What you're wasting your time for with that lot. That was the general remarks of all my cynical friends. But they were my age. They were 22, they weren't 15. They were all the people. And then Epstein came along and the Beatles came along. And Epstein, of course, had no knowledge of the music business particularly. Right. They had a store that sold furniture. They sold records as well, but it wasn't as though he knew anything about managing a band. And they just took off on a hit after hit, and the music was great. Everything was fantastic. And I thought, right, here we go. Watch out, Brian Epstein. I'm going to find a band, and I'm going to go right through the whole thing. So, first of all, we tried to get groups to do our music, Charlie and myself, and nobody would touch it with a barge pole, because they were okay. They were pleasant songs. You've got one of them only last night. They were okay. But we were getting nowhere, so I thought, right, we'll get a band for us. I'm trying to think. No, Charlie wasn't involved. Charlie was writing with me, but he wasn't involved in the band. What happened was, when I got Herman and the Hermits, I got 4 partners to finance. They put £55 each up to be part of this, to just help fund the band, and that managed us to get all the bookings and everything. Charlie wasn't on the scene at that stage. Charlie came on the scene when we needed a new van. And at that, all the people that were involved in Herman's Hermits were successful businessmen in their own right. So I said, look, I need £2,000 for this van, and I need to raise the money. Would you put more money on it? And none of them wanted to put any more money on it. There was no acrimony, there was no bad feelings. They said, if you give us our £55 back, fine, and Charlie came in, because I said Charlie was from a wealthy family. He put £1,000 up, and I put £1,000 up, and at that stage, we got the van. And from then on, Charlie was involved. So, but discovering the band, that was really, Charlie wasn't there then. So you see what I mean? It went from Herman and the Hermits. It's very confusing. With me having 4 partners, getting Herman and the Hermits, getting them all the work, then getting them to see Mickey Most. That was the next tricky thing to do, because I needed a record deal. So I got through to Mickey Most via Derek Everett and a long series of events. And then Charlie came in. That's answering the original question. And at that stage, of course, they did the B-side, Your Hand in Mine, of I'm Into Something Good. So we share the royalties with Goffin and King, which is a joke. But my father, who'd always been very, not sarcastic, but dubious about my songwriting abilities, whether it was worth losing being an accountant to do this, had to swallow it, because the first check was £6,000, which we bought a new house with, and changed our life, really, that did, and that was what happened there. It's very difficult, because it's like you say, it goes on and on and on, but I can pick up different points. And the other point about Herman and the Hermits was the story with Johnny Hamp, which I think is rather funny. I used to send photographs of the band. Beautiful Peter would look great. I mean, they always looked at the old band, Herman and the Hermits. They were all very good looking. The drummer was a bit fat, but he was in the background. But all the Keith, Carl, no, he was a big lad. That's what we used to say. So I used to send a lovely photograph of them in St. Peter's Square that I had made. I got them in nice leather tops, and they looked very smart. And I used to send them to all the TV programs, trying to get the publicity. And Granada TV were in Manchester, so it was the perfect opportunity. I kept sending stuff, I'm getting fobbed off. So I thought to my friend John Wright, who was became the fan club secretary, who also worked at the accountancy firm with me, Binder Hamlin. We definitely decided that we'll go to Granada and we'll find out this Johnny Hamp has had enough of this nonsense. So we went down there and we said, "Can we see Johnny Hamp?" "Oh yes, he's in studio something like 23. So I said, "Where's that?" He said, "It's a pub across the road." So I go across the road with John, and he's out at the bar. "Hello, Harvey." "Oh yes, I've got your photographs. They're very good. Yes, I must come and see the band sometime." So I said, "Well, what about now?" He said, "What do you mean now?" I said, "Well, they're doing a lunchtime set at the Plaza Ballroom in 20 minutes from now, and it's 5 minutes away." So Johnny Hamp's a practical joker of the first order. He and his friend came to see the band. He did a deal with his friend: whatever happens, don't show any sign of appreciation of this band.
Yes,
Just keep a deadpan face the whole time.
Right.
So, okay. So I go to sitting at the table, the band are playing, the kids are going wild, and I'm looking at these two with their blank faces with nothing. I think, oh my God, this is a mistake. And at the end of it, and after the set, I said to him, did you like them? He says, "Be at the studio tomorrow at 4:00. So now all the boys had jobs. They weren't professional, they all had jobs.
Yeah.
So in the morning, I phoned him up, Johnny Hamp, and I said, "You joking with me, Johnny?" He said, "You want them at the studio this afternoon?" Did you? What you think? "Oh, they were terrific. Get them down there right away." And he wrote in his book that he thought that I was the most persistent manager he'd ever met in his life. And he was the first person with the Beatles on his show,
That's right.
6:30.
That's right. That's
and
true.
He had everybody. There was anybody. That's a lovely story which wasn't in the book, which I felt should have been. And so I'm going to rectify that on the reprint, of course. And that was how we got the TV, and the TV was a disaster. All the sound was wrong on the day. It wasn't our fault, it was the TV had a problem. And we went back to the office, and all the girls and everybody had been watching. "Oh, this group's on, you've got to watch it." So they all watched it, and they were terrible. I mean, the sound was terrible. I was really embarrassed. Anyhow, Johnny Hamp, the next day, he said, "We're very sorry about the sound. Can you get them down next week?" So we got 2 appearances. It was just bloody miracles. But it just, things started to turn in my favour just at that point. Everything went on from then. And from being at the Plaza Ballroom, I went into the manager's office, Terry Devine, who I was very friendly with, and I saw a letter on it from EMI. So I thought, great, that EMI. I said, "Do you mind if I borrow that letter?" And Terry Devine said, "No, sure, take it away." And the bottom of the letter said Derek Everett. So I wrote to Derek Everett saying that we'd heard all about him in Manchester. We're really keen to meet him. Would he have a meeting and send a photograph of the band? He says, "Yeah, sure, come down." And as I walked through the door into Derek's office, he said, "By the way, Harvey," he says, "I've nothing to do with the musical side, A&R. I just sell records physically into dance halls on behalf of EMI." So my face dropped. I thought, oh my God, what an idiot. I spotted him up and saying what a great guy he was, and obviously nobody's heard of him. Anyhow, he said, "But by the way, there's a new kid on the block called Mickey Most. Now you're down, would you like to go and meet him?" So I said, "Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I'd like to do that." So I went to see Mickey Most from that. And Mickey Most had only had a hit with The Animals, I think, "Bring It On Home to Me," which like a top 20. It wasn't a number 1 or anything. And he looked at the picture of this same picture I sent everybody of the band, and he said, "Yeah, well, they look all right. I'll come and see them sometime." Well, sometime didn't evolve. So eventually, after about 2 months, I decided I'll send him 2 first-class airplane tickets and hotel accommodation of the night if he'll come and watch the band. So he agreed to do that, and met him at the airport, took him to the Beachcomber Club in Bolton where the boys were appearing. He loved the band. He then goes back in with my car, my mother's car, clapped out to Crown Harold, which is really embarrassing car. But I did have, because I was a kind of gadget freak, I had a record player in the car, and the record player would play 45s.
That's right.
With
They had them.
suspension.
Right.
There was the Phillips thing. And that was a bit lucky. So I had the good, the bad, and the ugly. On the way home, he said, I like the bad. I said, great. You'll have to get rid of 2 people. That's the bad. And they've got to change 2 of the band. I said, that's the bad. And the ugly was me having to get rid of them. Right. So I go back to Peter's house and I tell Peter, look, we've got to get rid of Alan Wrigley, and we've got to get rid of Stephen Titterington if we want a record deal. He won't do it otherwise. And that was it. And we had no choice. Peter was an embarrassing situation. Alan Wrigley was quite clever, really, because he'd seen the Beatles at the Cavern. And when he went with Peter to see them, he said, oh, God, we're never going to be able to make it. We can't deal with this. Because he couldn't really play.
Yeah.
And an ancillary to that is I've just had this track remixed, this only last night, which was the first song we ever did, which Herman and the Hermits did at Abbey Road with the BBC. And the guy that was remixing it said, I've had such problems with this track. He's remixed everything of Herman and the Hermits, Hermits, they're all great. Sort of new, updated versions. But he had the most problem with this track because the bass was out of tune. So he couldn't get it right.
Couldn't separate it.
Yeah.
So Mickey was right. And going on from that, the boys were on the first record. But then, when it came to the second record and all the other records, Mickey decided just to use session men. Brilliant players. Beautifully, all the arrangements are done by John Paul Jones, who subsequently was Led Zeppelin.
Right.
And also Jimmy Page played Sullivan, Clem Catini, the top people. But that was really hard for the boys to swallow, because the people that I put in the band, Derek Leckenby was as good as anybody on the guitar. A superb guitarist, and also was a great entertainer. He could do the Chuck Berry duck walk. So we always used to, our entertainers, go on, Derek, go on, do the duck walk. And he'd go across the room with his guitar doing this walk. And he was a wonderful guitarist. He did the riff to Henry VIII. That was his, a wonderful riff. And he was superb. Keith was a great guitarist as well. Carl switched to bass. I think Carl was rhythm originally. He was very good. And it went on and on. So I was very happy. And the drummer was Barry, and that was fine. Everything was fine. We were all in love with each other. It was probably the happiest time in the music business for me. It was a time where there was no grief, there were no split. Everybody was on a wave going up. Mickey Mouse, House the Rising Sun, #1 worldwide. Everything we touched went to gold. It was incredible. And then Uncle Mrs. Brown, and it just went on like that.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Ed Robertson thanking you for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button so that you won't miss our next episode.
Hey friend, I hope you know this is Pat Boone, and you and I are enjoying TV Confidential with my buddy Ed.
Harvey Lisberg is with us via Zoom. Harvey Lisberg, legendary music manager and the mastermind behind such iconic artists as 10cc, Tony Christie, and Hermits. Harvey's memoir, I'm Into Something Good, My Life Managing 10cc, Hermits, and many more, available wherever books are sold through Omnibus Press as well as Amazon.com. Chuck?
Early on, when the Hermits with Peter were playing live, they weren't a blues-based British band. They seemed to do American oldies and music hall type songs. Was that part of the appeal for you? Because they were really different from, say,
Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter was performed by Herman and the Hermits the first time I saw them.
Mm-hmm.
It was a throwaway number.
Right.
It wasn't meant to be serious. So we needed a number to finish an album off, right? They were their first album. So Mickey said, have you got anything else? And they said, well, we've got this thing. Just a number we do on stage to entertain the crowd, and Pete used to go on and put schoolboy outfits on, look a bit stupid and do Mrs. Brownie Only Daughter. So Mickey listened to it. He said, well, play it through. And now I think as they played it through, I think he recorded it. All the voices and the guitar, everything was together. One take, 4 minutes, boom, that was that. Then it went on the album.
We'll pick up that thread on the other side of the break. Harvey Lisberg is on the line with us. Harvey Lisberg, manager of 10cc, Herman's Hermits, Tony Christie, and other iconic music artists. Chuck Harter is with us. We hope you'll stay with us as we continue our conversation with Harvey Lisberg here on TV Confidential.
If you've got an ED problem, now you can get generic or herbal blue pills for as little as $2 a pill from Steelman Pills.
800-932-2613, 800-932-2613.